Thanks everyone for joining. You'll be seeing a lot of familiar names. I try to do kind of an up-to-date news on the ground here in Portugal once a month now, just to make sure everyone is fully up to date with what is a rapidly changing program. The Golden Visa program does seem to change almost on a weekly basis. Well, that's how it feels certainly over the past couple of years. Yeah, of course, field a lot of similar questions, a lot of confusing information, generally on Google. So yes, wanted to kind of give you the facts and the figures, everything that you need to know live. Of course, there will be a chance for a Q&A as well as we go through. Towards the bottom of your screen, you'll see exactly that. If you're not too familiar with Zoom, you'll see a chat and a Q&A box. You can chat or Q&A, both are perfectly fine. Hi there, Eugene. And yeah, like I said, we'll cover as many questions as we can as we go through. The plan for today, as always, I'll kind of bring everyone up to speed on the basics of the Golden Visa program, to make sure that, yeah, if you are at the beginning of your journey, you know kind of what's involved, and hopefully trying to help you work out if it is something that you should be exploring. Towards the back end of last year, there was also a big change to the investment criteria, the types of things you can put your money into now in order to get the Golden Visa. So we'll have a look at that. I'll bring you fully up to speed on the individual routes that may suit, and pay particular attention to a couple of those as we go through, including, of course, how you can now qualify for the program with as little as 375,000 euros, which is a pretty big headline, because all I was talking about last year and the year before that was a slowly increasing requirement to qualify for the program. It has been very much under the spotlight for a little while just now, so it's nice to have some good news. So it's getting a little bit easier, which is good. Been fielding a lot of questions as well from our US clients around, how can it be done with by funding the visa with retirement accounts. So I'm going to touch on that briefly as well as we go through. Also, some good news around the time it takes to get the passport now as well, which has been reduced. So yeah, and we'll cover as much as we can. Hopefully I'll answer the majority of questions as we go through, but anything I miss, please do drop any questions in the Q&A as I talk you through some slides. And then, yeah, anything we've not covered, we shall touch on at the end. So without further ado, I'm Jason Swan. I'm a senior partner here at Holborn Assets, and I'm down in the south of Portugal, which is definitely the best part of Portugal in the Algarve. Holborn Assets, we're a financial planner, and myself, I'm a fully qualified and regulated financial planner, working predominantly with expats that live in Europe and, of course, here in Portugal as well. As a group, we manage in excess of around $3 billion. Now, around about 6 years back, we introduced a program designed specifically to help our clients achieve residency and citizenship by way of investment. And that part of the Holborn group is Holborn Pass. Being in Portugal myself, I've been here now for 3 years. Previous to Portugal, I was in Spain for 5 years. My Portuguese is worse than my Spanish. English is still pretty much the only language I can actually competently speak. But yeah, I'm very much versed in everything generally about living in the likes of Spain and Portugal, but also very familiar with the local tax regime, as I spend a lot of my time helping my clients kind of structure their assets and their income in line with becoming a Portuguese tax resident. But this evening I'm going to focus on a speciality of mine, of course, which is the Portuguese Golden Visa program. But any questions you have generally about any of the above topics, should be a pretty good source of information. The Golden Visa program, although we're going to focus on Portugal this evening, we do offer different programs in various countries around the world. In Europe, we have routes to citizenship through the likes of Malta, Greece, and Spain as well. But internationally, we have residency programs as well in a number of different countries. For those that are exploring maybe not exclusively Portugal, then please do feel free to ask. I'll be happy to provide information on any of those other programs as well. But for tonight, we're all about Portugal, which is my personal favorite, As for those that are not too sure what the Golden Visa program is, it is effectively a golden ticket to live in Portugal. Without any restrictions, you can live, work, or study, or simply sunbathe, whatever you like, without any restrictions. And it is a 2-year visa. And you can renew that visa every 2 years for as long as you like. However, once you've held the visa for a total of 5 years, you can apply for citizenship. And that effectively is kind of the treasure at the end of the rainbow, whereas you can actually then live in any of the EU countries without any restrictions. So even if Portugal isn't the final destination, it is a great way to Europe. It's very much seen as the gateway to Europe because it has the shortest time to citizenship, other than Malta, but Malta requires significantly more investment. But it's only 5 years to get a Portuguese passport, and you don't have to physically live in Portugal to do that. You only need to be here for 14 days in every 2-year period, and you can be on the track to get the passport in 5 years' time. But it is actually the most successful program into Europe. It's been around now since 2012, where there's now been over 11,000 successful applications. I'm pleased to say that Holborn have now processed over 10% of the world's golden visa applications since the program was introduced. So I'm very familiar with the program and, of course, how to maintain a flawless success rate with our applications as well. That's generally what it is. As far as why Portugal, I probably don't need to talk you into why Portugal too much, but it is important to know that there are some key benefits of becoming a golden visa holder. You get access to pretty much all the same benefits as a Portuguese citizen, other than you cannot vote and you cannot run for president. But apart from that, both yourself and your family has access to one of Europe's leading healthcare systems and one of the top education systems as well. There are various tax incentives. The very famous NHR program unfortunately came to an end at the end of 2023. However, if you did start your journey to Portugal last year, you do have until the end of 2024 still to apply for NHR. For any questions on that, again, please do drop me an email. But in short, yeah, of course, it has a very good quality of life, if not, of course, the education and the healthcare as well. My personal favourite, obviously, I'm biased, but I think Algarve down in the south, it's typically a little bit warmer. The beaches are that much nicer. Anywhere on the south coastline, you're not going to go too far wrong. But of course, you do have a contrast over in Lisbon and the city centre, which is much more cosmopolitan, a lot more going on, a lot faster pace of life in Lisbon. And Porto up in the north, you could kind of say is a little bit of the two put together. Of course, the Madeira Islands are incredible. For me, it is kind of a second holiday, if you like, going out to Madeira. But yeah, you may prefer the Madeiran Islands as well. But best advice is to spend some time in Portugal. For me, I didn't know exactly where I was going to go to at the outset, and kind of travelled around between places and ultimately settled down in Albufeira in the south. But yeah, you're not going to go far wrong no matter where you head to. Now, let's get stuck into the latest news. So the new investment criteria for the visa program changed in December last year. The program was heavily debated in 2023 as to whether or not it was going to be closed entirely. And it did look that way until around about November time, after a year of debate between the government and the public. But ultimately, the program lived to see another day, which was good news. And there was only really one major change, and that is that property, any type of property investment, no longer qualifies as a means to get the visa. You can still buy property, still very welcome, of course, and a great place to invest, but it's just that you would not qualify with property investment alone. Now, instead, you have the option to help the employment in Portugal. Should you wish to create 10 jobs, it can be done. If you'd like to invest €500,000 into Portuguese technological research, that also would get you the golden ticket. Should you want to make a donation to the arts of 250,000, that is formally the minimum capital route to get the visa, but of course it does require a very generous donation of 250,000 euros, which strangely isn't a very popular option, but it is one nonetheless. You can also invest into a qualifying venture capital or investment fund from 500,000 euros as well. We'll come on to that more shortly. And also, more of a focus for this evening is to talk more around what is becoming a more increasingly popular route to the visa by investing, again, that 500,000 euros into the reinforcement of existing share capital on the basis that the company of which you're investing into supports a minimum number of jobs for a minimum period of time. But in the main, the minimum investment, the magic number, if you like, is 500,000 euros for any type of investment, or of course the donation route from 250,000 euros. That's it. They're all the same. So they've been around for quite some time, but yeah, with property now no longer part of the options, then venture capital funds and the capital transfer tend to be the two favourites by quite some way. Good news on the process timeline. There was an announcement in January now that the initial application period for the visa now will count towards the 5-year time required to get the passport. And for those that may be not too familiar with the time of the application, on average will take somewhere between, at the moment, about 12 to 18 months. We're pretty confident that's going to come down closer to around 12 months. But that application time now comes off the 5 years before you can apply for the passport, which is great because before it was 5 years plus the application time. So, of course, quite a frustrating time when there can be delays sometimes with the application. But now, it is faster than ever, and there is no more than 5 years of time required to get the passport. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. All good news on that front. Okay, so who qualifies for the visa? So anybody that isn't already an EU citizen can apply for the Golden Visa on the basis that they have a clean criminal record. They make an eligible investment, okay, again, following the rules of the criteria we just looked at, and you can have a stay. This is the worst part. You've got to come to Portugal for 14 days every 2 years. So it's a great excuse for a nice family holiday. But just to kind of stress on that point, the reason is actually the main reason the Portugal program outstrips the Spanish Golden Visa, for example, considerably, because you don't have to move to Portugal. The majority of my clients are actually not moving to Portugal for quite some time. More often than not, it's viewed as kind of a plan B for the future, whether it be for retirement. I've had a number of conversations for political reasons in the home country. People now looking at Portugal as kind of a safe route potentially in the future. It could be for children. Again, one big benefit is allowing your family to study in Europe as well, even though as the main applicant, you might not have an interest in Portugal. It does offer the benefit for family to study and live here as well. But there's no age requirements, there's no income requirements, there's no anything else really. That's it. Everything that you see in gold is all you need to do. That's it. It's really straightforward. It's not like some programs in different countries where there's a chance it might be declined. As long as you maintain those 4 points, you'll be fine. Okay, so as far as which family members can be included, so the program is designed to bring 3 generations on the same application, if you can. It wasn't too long back, I did an application with around 13 family members. We had step-parents and step-children and mum and dad and kids, and we managed to get everybody on the same application. Now, you can bring as many family members as you like, as long as we can somehow evidence that they are deemed a dependent. And a dependent can be a spouse, can be either married or unmarried, is fine as long as you live at the same address. It can be children up to the age of 21 in Portugal. We can add children older than 21. but we must prove dependency past that age. So we can do that, for example, if they're still in education in some way or financially dependent on their parents. But by default, up to age 21, we don't need to provide any evidence at all. And also parents as well. So parents above the age of 65 are automatically assumed as dependent family members. So we can add those as well. Step parents also is fine. If they're above the age of 65, sorry, if they're below the age of 65, it is, again, potentially still possible, but we do need to provide some evidence of dependency. Often we can change who is the main applicant as well. So depending on everybody's ages, sometimes it makes sense to add the main applicant as a child or a parent in order to get more people on the application. So naturally, we'll talk through that on a one-to-one basis. But yeah, more the merrier, and everyone can be included on the same investment and same application. Again, any questions on that? Please do drop in the Q&A. But hopefully that's nice and clear. Okay, so the process that's involved, a bit of a busy slide, but this is kind of what's happening in the background throughout the process. Now, Holborn manages, we facilitate the whole process from right from kind of finding the investment up until when you receive the passport in 5 years' time. And you have myself, and you have my team, all of which manage all the different moving parts and liaise with the different bodies involved to get you to citizenship. But that all starts again with, we'll speak on a one-to-one basis. I'll find out around your investment budget and preferences, and I'll help you to find a reputable investment to qualify for the program. Now, once you have found that investment, the first thing that we will do is to set up your Portuguese tax numbers and also open a Portuguese bank account. And you can't really do a great deal in Portugal before you have your tax number. So that takes only a few days to get that through. The bank account can take some time. Again, all of this can be done remotely. The only time at which you physically need to travel to Portugal is not until around about 6 months after the application, which will be for the biometrics appointment with AIMA, who used to be SAF. But the bank account can be done remotely, but it can be done faster in person. So if we do that for you, it can take a few weeks to do that. If you do want to use it as an excuse to come into Portugal, you can meet with a bank and set up an account on the same day, but it's not necessary. By default, we will take the reins on that part for you. Once your account is set up, you've got your tax number, and naturally you'll meet with the acting law firm, again, which we will liaise with on your behalf. And we'll make a recommendation, of course, for the law firm, someone that we are familiar with, of course, that we know can successfully complete the process efficiently. And once that's done, you'll be asked in due course to transfer the funds for the investment to your new Portuguese bank account. And once the bank account is set up, and once the money is within your Portuguese bank account, you can then invest into the chosen investment. As soon as you have ownership evidence, as soon as you have your policy documents, should it be a fund, whether you have the ownership documents, if you go down the company route, evidence of the donation, whatever it may be, we should gather all the necessary documents in the meantime, things such as criminal record certificates, copies of birth certificates, sometimes marriage certificates, and a few other bits and pieces, but we'll gather everything together. And once we have the ownership document to prove to AIMA that you have chosen a suitable investment, we then submit your application. Now that first part generally will take somewhere between 4 to 12 weeks to get to the point of submitting the application and getting your unique tracking number from AIMA. It's all done online. AIMA has now taken over from SAF. We are now seeing applications being processed a lot faster. AIMA do seem to be looking to get ahead of the game and much more efficient than what we've seen over recent years with SAF, which is good. And again, we're hoping the whole process to actually get the visa now closer to about 12 months from start to finish. But during that 12 months, you'll also have your biometrics appointment. So once we've submitted the application, you'll have an appointment made with AIMA. Again, we will keep you up to date as to when that is. We'll give you as much notice as possible, but then everyone needs to fly in to, at least for one day, at least for one pretty soul-destroying day of meeting with the AIMA office to do your fingerprints and your photos ready for your visa cards to be issued. You'll be accompanied on the day. You'll have a representative join you at the office to help with translation and make the day a little bit less soul-destroying. It is often quite a boring day meeting with AIMA, but you'll have support there to make sure it all goes to plan. That's it. So just to recap, we manage all this for you. It is completely remote solution for the program. The only thing that we need you in Portugal for is the biometrics, and everything else can be done remotely. Again, any questions on that, please feel free to drop in the Q&A, but hopefully that makes sense at this stage. So let's have a quick recap. So once we've got the visa, okay, the visa will be approved in around about 12 months' time, and it will last for 2 years. Okay, so we submit the application to begin. We'll have the approval done after around 1 year, and that visa will last for 2 years, at which point we must then do the first renewal. And I've added in some nice user-friendly pictures there at the bottom to make it nice and clear what you need to do over that time frame. So step one is we get the visa. We then need to renew the visa. We may need to do 2 renewals. Now, because of the new rule with the 5 years maximum to get the passport, we may actually now find that we only need to do 1 renewal during that time. It'll take about 1 year to get the visa, which will last for a further 2 years when we do the first renewal, which will then take you up to 5 years. At that point, we can now do the application. Previously, of course, it was taking longer than 5 years, so there was 100% going to be 2 renewals, and there is a cost involved with those renewals. So we're now looking to get everything done with just the 1. But over that time, just remember that you need to understand a little bit of Portuguese, better than what I can at the moment, but a basic, relatively basic level. I say relatively basic, but it's actually quite difficult if you're not very good with languages like me. I'm very good with numbers, not very good with languages, but it is an A2 level of understanding. So a majority of our clients are kind of doing that gradually over the 5 years. Some choose to do it in a crash course and just get it done and dusted. You can do the test at any time during the 5 years, and you can do it at a local test center in your home country. But yeah, at some point, we need to have evidence that you've got a basic understanding of the language. Also, making sure you keep a clean criminal record during that time. But as long as you've done those 2 things, we can then apply for the permanent residency at year 5. At the same time, we get the passport as well. And that's it. That's the process. That is what we need to do. That is mission complete. At which point you'll have a European passport. The Portuguese passport is officially the 4th best passport in the world. It gives you visa-free travel to 190 countries worldwide, which some of us take for granted, actually. I mean, for example, if you have a UK or an American passport, we actually have the luxury of being able to travel to most countries without a visa anyway. But there are many nationalities which it can be a very difficult process to just go on a holiday for a week. So by having that European passport, you have that visa-free travel globally, but also you then have the rights without any restrictions to live, work, or study in any European state. So that's it. So again, there's different ways you can navigate it. If you want to move to Portugal, great. Even if you don't, it still works. Even if it's like I say, a plan B or retirement plan for the future, you can get that 5-year clock ticking to the European passport without moving country, and then you'll have that passport to look forward to then live anywhere in Europe at some point in the future. Okay, super. So that takes us up to the process itself. That's it. That's what's involved. And the next step, I'm just going to kind of run through in a bit more detail the investment routes from which you can choose from. And then, yeah, once we do that, we'll get into the Q&A. How are we doing for time? We're okay. We're okay for time. So let's jump in. Okay, so option number one, you can choose to invest into an investment fund. Okay, but in order for the investment fund to qualify, there is certain criteria of which it must abide by to pass. And the first is that the fund must be regulated in Portugal by the Securities Commission, okay, which rules out 99% of funds in the global universe to just Portuguese regulated funds. Okay, and the fund can also not directly or indirectly any longer invest into any kind of real estate. And of course, there must be the minimum criteria of 500,000 euros invested. And also, a point I've missed off there is that at least 60% of the assets of that fund must be invested into Portuguese securities. So there's not lots of these funds around, but I suppose also to remember as well, you need to keep the investment. You've got to keep the investment up until when you get the citizenship, ideally, because at any point during that time, if you don't hold the investment, you won't be able to renew the visa once it expires. So we want to ideally keep that investment up until when the visa becomes permanent and or you get passport. In total, of funds meeting that criteria to qualify for the visa, there's around 25 to 30 different types of investment fund that all vary in nature and risk appetite and returns and the industry that they invest into, amongst other things. It goes without saying that when you're looking to invest into a fund, there's maybe a few more things to think about than previously when we was just looking at property. Property is something that generally we're all quite familiar with from a young age, whereas investing into funds does require a little bit more thought and attention. And these are my key points, if you like, to be mindful of when you are looking to go down the fund route. And first and foremost is always the question I'm asked is, how secure is the capital whilst it's invested in the fund? Okay, does the fund offer protection to the investor? Is there any secondary or tertiary levels of protection, perhaps by way of an asset-backed security? Okay, but first and foremost, it doesn't really matter about investment returns unless you have a high level of security for the money in the first place. Be mindful, of course, about how long the money is tied up for. Now, for the visa, you only need to be invested for 5 to a maximum of 6 years. So there are funds out there that will be tying up the money for much longer than what you actually need them for. And ideally, you don't want to be committed to funds that are carrying with them so many restrictions around the visa. After you've got the passport, you don't need to be in those restricted funds any longer, and you can go back to investing however you see fit. But be mindful of how long you committed to that fund for. Fees. You'll find typically with Portuguese regulated funds, fees can be quite high by comparison with globally accessible funds. Be mindful of entry fees, management fees, exit fees, performance fees. There are some funds which are just outrageously high in fees, and I don't personally mind funds with fees. If fees are worth paying, great, but often they're not worth paying. So just to make sure that you've got a full transparent breakdown of exactly what you're paying for the fund. And of course, are the funds, do they offer a guaranteed return? Do they offer a fixed return? Is it a variable return? Of course, naturally, something of interest. Make sure you understand the risk of the fund. What is it investing into? What is the chance of the fund disappearing into the abyss? What is the security of the industry that it goes into? What is the institutional risk? Okay, who is the depository bank? Things like this. For our US clients, again, not all funds are particularly friendly with the US. For different reasons, the US is one of 2 countries in the world that does continue to tax its citizens, even if you move away from the country. Some funds are not too friendly with US citizens, so be mindful of that. And also, you will also find additional incentives with certain funds as well. And of course, incentives are always good. For me, I'll be looking for reduced legal fees or complimentary stays in Portugal, things like this. But yeah, incentives are always good. Of course, a part of our service will kind of help introduce you to some reputable fund managers, and that's part of my service. When we speak on a one-to-one basis to kind of point you in the right direction. But hopefully those are just some useful tips and tricks in the meantime. Now, I promised I sent them, of course, an email to everyone this week about the quite big headline. Actually, I would say American clients probably account for around about 80% of applications for the Golden Visa over the past kind of 12 to 18 months. And with the minimum investment increasing from 280 to 500 this year, more and more often now, I'm seeing people wanting to divert to their retirement accounts as a way to fund the investment. Now, it can work well, but also you'll be aware that there may be penalties and significant taxes to pay if you do withdraw from a retirement account. So what we've kind of taken this on board, and we're now able to offer a solution in partnership with our US attorneys, whereas you can qualify now for the Golden Visa without making a withdrawal from the retirement account, which will navigate any penalties, of course, and any taxes due as well. If you're going to be taking out 500,000 euros net of taxes, before taxes, you're going to need to take out a significantly higher sum. So when you compare the savings side by side from withdrawing to simply investing through a self-directed IRA, you can find that the savings are considerable. So yeah, we've had a lot of demand for this. So yeah, very pleased to say that we now have a solution to assist with this. If you are a US citizen and you would like to find out how to structure the investment so that you don't need to withdraw from the retirement account, please ask, and we shall make an introduction to our US attorneys as part of our service. But that's good news. I know there's a lot of people on the call wanting to know how that works. So yeah, get in touch and we'll talk you through in some more detail. Okay, so moving forward. So we're up to date so far. Again, any questions, please drop them in. I've got a few coming in there, which is great. Thank you everyone for your questions so far. We'll come on to them very, very shortly. So investing, the other option, of course, the other investment option, taking aside, creating jobs and managing people, or the donation route, the other investment route is, of course, investing into share capital, which indirectly will go into creating or maintaining jobs as well. And one particular sector which is thriving in Portugal for obvious reasons is the hospitality sector. Now, in order to qualify through this route, as I mentioned before, there is a minimum sum of 500,000 euros required to invest into the share capital of an existing Portuguese company. And that company must be supporting at least 10 job positions for Portuguese residents for at least 3 years. But the hospitality sector in particular is where this becomes more interesting. The hospitality sector in Portugal, as I mentioned, contributes over 40 billion euros to the economy. And is only increasing. And there are a number of companies out there that you can invest with, which offer some fantastic incentives. And this is the answer to the original question about how to qualify with just 375,000 euros. Now, there is a way to invest into existing share capital and basically receive the returns of that investment up front. You actually receive 5 or possibly 6 years of those returns up front, which can actually be used to contribute towards the initial 500,000 euros. There's one example in particular that I'm aware of that will actually pay an upfront 125,000 euros, with needing only 375 required from the investor. And of course, that is always a bonus. Less cash is always better. But in particular, of course, if you're selling assets to finance the visa, of course, that the requirements to only free up 375 rather than 500 may be a big advantage, to less taxes to pay on what it is that you're selling. But really good incentive, big headline. We've started to focus a lot more on this now. Again, seen a big uplift in demand for alternative routes to the visa now that property is not around. And yeah, we're pleased to see that we've got that lower capital requirement right down to 375. Again, any questions on that, drop them in the Q&A. This is one example. This is my personal favorite at the moment. Although those that have already been in contact will be familiar with this particular option, and this is still my personal favorite. Now, there is a way of investing into the hospitality sector, and again, it's in a similar light to what I've just mentioned. You can invest into an existing company with capital of just 399,000 and receive an upfront and fixed return of 3.35% per year, which over those full 6 years that they're paid for is a total of 101,000 euros. And it can actually be done where that payment is contributing towards the 500,000 investment. Not only that, this particular option offers a guaranteed buyback as well, so you don't have any concerns about the investment value going down over the 5 or 6 years. It is predetermined and contracted, although it's optional for the investor to get back at least a minimum of 500,000 euros once you have your passport. Also, I mentioned about additional incentives. Again, as investors with this particular option, you get access to a complimentary 6-week stay every year at the Royal Obidos Spa and Golf Resort. That's the website there if you want to take a look. It is on booking.com. Again, the hotel was opened back in 2021. Yeah, again, 6-week stay near Lisbon, very close to the sea, on a very famous golf course, is a nice to have. So we like that, and also it offers a very high level of security because the investment is backed by physical assets as well. You actually have property held as collateral whilst investing into the company. So again, a quick example on that, but I like it because less capital required. The returns are fixed. Not only are they fixed, they're paid up front. You have a guaranteed exit. It ticks all the boxes. Of course, it's an established business as well. So other than that, the general overview of investing into businesses. Yeah, of course, I'm not going to go through everything this evening. I could do, of course, invite meetings and we can talk through the available options across Portugal. But as a quick recap, they do start at 375,000 euros, inclusive of taxes and legal fees. Depending on the different route that you take, again, the incentives vary from project to project. But again, where we can, we'll try and make sure you've got access to many of the incentives at any one time. They can vary from fixed returns to upfront returns, the guaranteed buyback. There's also options to invest into hospitality with some key names like the Hilton Hotel Group, the Hard Rock Hotel Group, and the Wyndham. And again, as far as the investing into share capital, I will make some recommendations for you. Once we understand what your budget is and what your preferences are, we'll help you to find something that fits. But that's a general overview of what we do at that point. I'm going to pause there and take some questions. Hopefully that was helpful. Not doing too bad for time. So I've got on the screen a QR code. If you want to scan that, if you do want to book in a complimentary discussion, very welcome to do so. I will not charge you for that discussion. And we're happy to kind of talk through any questions, of course, on a more personal, private basis. Can also go through full costings of things like taxes and legal fees and things like this. Holborn, for reference, we don't charge ourselves. So we do get paid, of course, but the different providers, such as the law firms and such as the investment providers, cover our fees for facilitating the Golden Visa process. But happy to give a full breakdown on what to expect. By request, if you want a recording of the webinar, please ask. I have a very handy Portugal tax guide as well if you want some bedtime reading to send you asleep. But that will cover everything that you need to know on the tax bill. And yes, the other programs as well. If you do want to have a chat about other routes to Europe, such as Spain, Greece, and Malta, please do feel free to ask. Great. Okay, so let's get stuck into some questions. I've got a lot of questions coming before the webinar started, so let's get stuck into what's coming first of all. Hi there, Eugene. Is there a list of Portuguese investment funds available for the residency by investment? There isn't a list as such, Eugene, but yeah, I can show you some useful links to see all the different funds available in Portugal. Again, drop me an email, preferably schedule some time to speak, and I'll explain how you can find the full list of investment funds. What are the performance of the funds in the list? Hi there, Ishay. Is there a wide choice to pick from? Yeah, okay, so we've covered that off. So again, across Portugal, there's around about 25 to 30 different funds that meet that criteria of being regulated in Portugal. At least 60% of the assets going into Portuguese securities. And I forgot the last one. Completely gone. But yes, there's about 25 to 30 in total. And again, please do drop us a message for any help on that front. Hi there, Ali. Is the fund or business investment project, resort or hotel, etc., can provide apartment as repayment instead of cashback? Yes, Ali. On that particular resort, so the Royal Obidos, at the end of the 6 years, once you have the passport, if you have a few options, you can either take the guaranteed buyback and receive the 500,000 euros. You can remain invested if you wish, or you can actually exchange the share that you invested into the company to take full deed ownership of the apartment. Now, if you want to do that, you have to be mindful that you'll pay the purchase taxes at that point. But we suspect that will happen if prices continue to increase. So you'll have kind of 399,000 going in at the outset. If prices increase in the next 5 years, like they have done in the last 5 years, of course, the apartments will be worth significantly more. So to take the option to exchange your share in the company for ownership of one of those apartments would make sense, and you can do that. If, of course, prices go down, then naturally it will make sense to simply take the buyback and receive the 500,000 euros. But you've got 4 years to decide. Basically, in the fourth year, they'll ask, would you like to execute the buyback? Would you like to change to take ownership of one of the apartments? Or would you like to stay invested? So hopefully that answers your question. Are there again any more queries on that? Please drop us a message or book some time to speak. Hi there, Eugene. Will these slides be available after the presentation? The slides, not so much, but I will be uploading onto YouTube over the next few days. So keep an eye out for that, Eugene. And please do drop me an email, and I'll be sure to send that to you as soon as it's up. Does this process add to the application time, or does the timer start when the application is submitted? So the application period of around about 12 months now contributes towards the 5-year time frame for the passport. So there is now 5 years in total required from start to passport. Hi there, Andrew. Could you please review the requirements for a parent to join an application? No problem. So if you would be the main applicant, Andrew, we can add your parents without any proof of dependency if your parents are over the age of 65. If they're younger than 65 and you're their child, then we may put the application in their name and have you as their dependent. But it's a very simple process to add further family members. And yeah, as long as they're over 65, yeah, it's automatically assumed dependency, and we simply add them to the application. There isn't too much difference in the costs involved. You'll find there's slightly more legal fees to pay, normally about €1,000, to add additional dependents. And the government fees, there are taxes to pay as well. It's around about €6,000 per additional family member to add. And of course, be mindful of the renewal after the second year as well. But all things considered, they get a lot of value for money to go on the same application. So yeah, hopefully that helps. Hi there, Eugene. Is permanent residence the same as citizenship? It actually isn't. I mean, there are some countries, Eugene, that don't allow dual nationality. So we can only do the permanent residency, and you would keep your existing nationality. But the majority you can do dual nationality, therefore we would do permanent residency application and the citizenship application at the same time. But yeah, you can do one or both to your preference. Hi there, Yuri. Examples of these funds, please. Okay, Yuri. Yeah, please do. Well, I've given you an example of some of the investments as well to go into further detail and to see which funds you may qualify for to make some introductions for you. Please do book in to schedule some time and we can talk in some more detail. Hello there, Anonymous. If the initial investment of 500,000 drops in value to 250, what happens? Well, you'll be very unhappy, first of all, but it won't impact the visa application, if that would make you feel any better, because we can still evidence that you invested the right amount of money into a qualifying fund. But of course, if you can invest into a fund or a company where you have a fixed return, you don't have that worry anyway. But yeah, it won't affect the application for the visa. Hi, after the 5 years, can you withdraw all of your money? Yes, you can withdraw all of your money. Yeah, I mean, it depends ultimately on what you invest into. Different investments have different time periods, but certainly as far as any of my recommendations, we would be looking to find the minimum time period. In a perfect scenario, you want to have a predetermined exit. You want to know exactly when you're getting the money back, exactly what that money is going to be. So as soon as you have your passport, everything is withdrawn, and then you can then use that capital to do whatever you like. You can reinvest into any fund in the world that you like. I can put my my investment manager hat back on, and I can help with your financial planning, of course. Or you can buy a new home. You might decide to use that money towards your future home in Portugal. So yeah, as long as you're not tied in for longer than you need to be. Yeah, the idea is you get all the cash back out as soon as you get your passport. Hi, Stephen. Great job on the presentation, Jason. Thank you very much. I would like to hear more detail on the investment through the IRA 401k. My email is here. Hi, Stephen. Yeah, no problem. I'll make a note. I shall drop you a message. Hi there, Mason. What will happen if the fund goes into the abyss? What will be required to do another investment to renew? What if the worth of the investment goes down below the 500,000? Okay, so if the fund goes into the abyss, similar response. First of all, yeah, that would be very bad news. You would have probably bigger things to worry about, Mason, than the visa at that point. But if the fund did go into the abyss, if you chose a bad fund, then yeah, that's the first problem that we, I suppose, we need to deal with. I mean, certainly as far as any introductions we would make, we would be making sure there is security in place to make sure that doesn't happen. But hopefully, whatever fund that you choose will be able to recoup. But if it wasn't there, if you wanted to invest into another fund for any reason, you could do that. You could renew, you could reinvest and then renew. But yeah, we do need to make sure that the investment is there. To be fair, if that did happen, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't impact your application because we can still evidence that you invest into the fund, and that is the criteria. It is not to maintain a certain performance on the fund. So I'm going to go as far to say I don't think it would impact the application, but the first challenge is making sure, Mason, you invest in a fund that cannot happen, first of all. But hopefully that helps. Hi there, Stephen. I'd like to have some information on the Royal Obidos. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, that's fine, Stephen. No problem at all. Is the Obidos, hi John, isn't the Obidos investment property related? Good question. The Royal Obidos investment has the option of property investment after the 6 years. During that time, however, it is important to note that you'd be investing into the hospitality company that manages the resort, amongst others as well. So we're not actually buying any property. We're not investing into any property, both directly or indirectly, but would be increasing the share capital for the hospitality management company of different resorts, the Royal Obidos being one. So as a perk for investors that increase the share capital in the hospitality company, have a complimentary stay at the Royal Obidos. So yes, there's no direct or indirect investment. Unless, like I said, after 6 years you want to take ownership, you just need to make sure that you remember that there's the taxes. Taxes for a purchase of that price would be around about 35,000 euros in Portuguese tax. So you would only have to pay that should you take ownership at the end of the term. Other than that, yeah, not to worry, John. But yeah, for now, yeah, no property investment. All is good to go. We've already had successful applications through that option as well. Hi, Stephen. Yeah, no problem. I shall send over the recording. Thank you. Hi, Anonymous. For the route of keeping funds within the self-directed IRA, are there restrictions on what type of funds you can invest in? The restrictions don't really come from the IRA itself. It is more, of course, it's meeting the criteria of the Portuguese Golden Visa requirements. And the money must ultimately come from an account in your name. Now, I won't go into too much detail because it's not necessarily applicable for everyone, but the whole process involves setting up a US LLC and also a Portuguese LLC as well, to the point where the funds can stay within the self-directed IRA. So very clever how it's done. Again, our US attorneys will kind of talk through that. I can provide the costings to set up that structure, which ultimately allow the funds to stay in the IRA to avoid you having to take a substantially higher sum to receive, net 500,000. So I hope that answers your question. But again, please do book a one-to-one discussion for that, and I'll be happy to go through that with you. Hi there, Yuri. Do the 2-year visas allow to work in Europe? Yes, you can do whatever you like, Yuri. You can work, you can not work, do whatever you like. Yeah, you have a golden ticket to do however you so wish. Hello, VJ. Hello, Mr. Swan. Does the Royal Obidos also have a large size apartment? Are you a 2-bedroom apartment? What is the current price of a 1-bed? So it's important to know, VJ, that you have the option to stay at the property for 6 weeks each year, but there's no purchase of the property. Okay, that is only the option after the 6 years. If you do that, you'll have there are 2 beds on there. There are 2-bed. Let me think about it. No, there isn't 2 beds. No, they're all 1-bedroom apartments. The whole resort is 1 beds. There's also some studio apartments as well, but no 2 beds. But again, that's only something that you would take ownership of after the 6 years. Hope that makes sense. Again, any questions? Let's talk in one-to-one. Hi, Stevie. What happens if the fund goes bust before the 5-year period ends? Yeah, so I think I covered that one before. Hopefully, you got the answer to that one, Stevie. Hi, Andrew. Are engagements of Holborn exclusive vis-a-vis other investment consultants? We have 2 parts. Ultimately, Holborn Pass facilitates the whole process, Andrew, and that includes, of course, helping find an investment. And of course, we have access to all investments as well. But we do have a separate legal team if maybe the services of Holborn are not required, and it was just legal services, then that's no problem. But yeah, there's generally no reason necessarily to kind of split things up. But yeah, if you ever wanted to speak to the lawyers directly, that's no problem at all. Hi, Isha. I've seen you putting your hand up there, Isha. Thank you very much. I should have everyone on camera, really, shouldn't I? So I can bring you on with me. But I'll go through the questions. After 5 years, can you take out the money and apply for permanent residency rather than citizenship? So first question, yes, you can take out the money. As soon as you don't need the investment anymore, you take the capital out. So you sell the shares, you sell the funds, take the capital back out. Obviously, the funds that have variable returns, you need to be mindful of what the fund is worth at that time. If it has a guaranteed buyback or a fixed return, you'll have the benefit of knowing exactly what you're going to get back after the 5 years. But you would, before you do that, you'd need to apply for the residency and citizenship before you close the investment. So once you've got the permanent residency or citizenship, everything becomes permanent. You no longer need to keep the investment, and therefore you're free to sell and do whatever you like, Ishay. Hi, Vijay. For investment in the Royal Obidos, will there be any tax on compensation income of €101,000? Probably, Vijay. Yeah, probably will be. It is a return. Ultimately, it will depend on what country that you are resident in. There's no tax in Portugal. I can confirm that. But of course, if you do receive an income of €101,000, that may be taxable in your home country. There is possibility to kind of split that perhaps not into all one big lump sum, which may be helpful to avoid kind of pushing you into a higher tax bracket, which can be important depending on certain countries. But in the main, yes, probably will pay some tax. Unless you don't tell anyone about it, but that would be a bad idea. Okay, so hi there, Scott. Well done and thank you. No problem. Could I also have a link to the recording along with the slides? Yep, no problem, Scott. I'll let you know as soon as it's going onto YouTube. I'll be sure to send out a link. No problem. Hi, Vijay. Do you deal with the Hungary Golden Visa? It's not one of our main focuses, Vijay, but if you would like to explore it, I'm sure we can assist. We could do a Hungary Golden Visa. Yeah, yeah. Just drop me a message. Let's talk about it. I'm sure we can help you out if you need some assistance. Hi there, Sam. What is the current status of biometrics appointment? It's been delayed due to COVID, but I heard that the government tries to prompt it. Do you see any meaningful improvement recently? Yes, actually. Yeah, the biometrics appointments are happening faster than ever. So in short, yes, they're happening faster than ever, and almost within a couple of weeks, really, of the pre-approval. So yeah, it's doing okay. Yeah, we're seeing that happening faster than normal. No problem, VJ. Thank you very much. Andrew, thank you. Yes, of course, no problem. Thanks for joining. Hope that was helpful. Okay, so thanks, Jenny. No problem. I shall send it out to you. No problem. Okay, right. I'm just going to have a look. We're just going to finish up in a couple of minutes' time. I'm just going to have a look through the questions that were submitted before the event. I may have covered most of these, but let's just make sure I have done so. Okay. So yeah, Vijay, we've covered yours. Investment of €500,000. Yeah, so we've covered that. Golden Visa options. Hi, Raphael. Real estate in low density areas. Okay, yeah, so that was something that was removed last year. There's no longer any real estate investment in low or high density regions of Portugal, unfortunately. And NHR options, again, the NHR program has now finished. If you did start your journey to Portugal last year and we can evidence that, then you will be granted an extension till the end of 2024 to submit your NHR. Again, NHR, if we can assist with that application, should you need to. Okay. Update on existing applications. Yep, so we've covered time frame. We've covered off NHR. Any positive attributes from a citizenship perspective to investing into Portuguese real estate? Yep. So, yeah, I think we've covered that off, Scott. Hi, Veronica. Types of golden visa, process and timeline. Support for the application. Yep. So we've got full support. We shall hold your hand, Veronica, right throughout those 5 or 6 years to when you get the passport. Hi there, Cody. Where do I begin? You begin with scanning the code on the screen, and we'll have a look at the. We'll have a look at your investment requirements first of all. Well, that's step number one. Once you've found the investment, we'll then proceed to get the Portuguese tax number set up. We'll get underway with your Portuguese bank account, and then you have myself and my team really then managing the whole process, keeping you up to date along the way, and making sure everything runs swimmingly well, without any problems or any delays along the way. Okay, so we've covered off that bit. Hi there, Karen. The cost of our service, the government fees broken down. Yeah, okay. So ultimately, so there's no fees for our service. There is a cost, of course, for legal fees. There's a cost for the government. Ultimately, those costs vary depending on what you invest into and also how many family members are included on the application. So I can actually bring that up on screen in a one-to-one discussion very easily. We can have a look at a few of, we can look at a few different examples of types of investments and confirm how many family members to include. And then very quickly, I can give you a full breakdown and then email to you all the costs involved over the next 6 years. Okay, investment rules for Golden Visa. Yeah, I've covered that. James, hi Fatima. How do I apply and qualify? Yeah, I think we've covered that. Hi Jennifer. What proof of continuing investment is the government looking to see at the renewal stage? So pretty much the same one. We need to make sure that either the existing investment, preferably, is still in place for the full investment or visa period. In theory, you could change, but there's not really any suitable investments that have an investment time frame of kind of 2 to 3 years that qualify for the visa. So in an ideal world, what you invest into is going to be designed to keep that right throughout until you get the passport and permanent residency. Okay, so hi Donna. The monthly returns or annual percentage of return. Okay, so yeah, so as I covered, so there's many different ways of investing. Different funds, different businesses offer different returns and different incentives, different risk appetites, and so forth. Often, as with any investment, risk drives the returns. There are ways of investing very cautiously, which generally you'd expect a lower return. Or if you're feeling frisky, you can invest more adventurously and go for bigger returns. Ultimately, again, once we speak on a one-to-one basis, I can help kind of guide you in the right direction, depending on which investment route you feel is most suitable, and of course, the personal requirements and interests that you have, Jennifer. But typically, investment returns can vary from 0 to 20%, 20% per year, depending on what it is that you invest into. Also, there are, of course, investment funds that go up and down in value, as with any investment fund. So all these things, need to be factored in. For the majority, we don't get involved with high risk investments. It's stressful enough, transferring €500,000 to a foreign country without the added stress of worrying about what you've invested into and is it going to go down in value and are you going to lose that money and so on. So although for my wealth management clients, we do get a lot more involved with kind of risk management, we look really we base our guidance on security of capital and stress-free life, ultimately, when choosing from the Golden Visa investment options. But again, we can go through the full sweep on a one-to-one basis, no problem. Okay, how to get jobs in Portugal. Not one for today, Mr. Awais, but yeah, I can guide you to some good links on Google for that one. Real estate in Madeira. Yeah, so real estate in Madeira we cannot do. Hi Jude. Best way to obtain realtor. Yeah, okay. So again, always a lot of demand for property. Just to be clear, property investment finished at the end of 2023. So now the most favored, most in demand routes are the going through an investment fund, going through the share capital, the donation. Strangely, I've never done an application for a donation. I don't know why. No one seems to want to give away €250,000, but you can. But generally, that's only people I work with looking to invest and get that capital back, and of course make some money at the same time as getting the passport. But property, unfortunately, is no longer a route. You could, of course, you can rent a property and you can still buy a property, but just be mindful that you'd have to also simultaneously do a qualifying investment as well. Okay. I think we've covered most questions off. We've covered off the 401k situation. Lots of questions about the 401k and the rollover. So yeah, as always, a lot of demand to like I say, to navigate the Golden Visa, I've had so many clients this year that have been kind of so excited about the program, then gone away to kind of see how best to finance it, and then realize that actually it's going to be quite expensive to take money out of retirement accounts. So being able to offer that solution now, to avoid you having to withdraw and pay unnecessary penalties and taxes is great. And by keeping that money in the retirement account, of course, you're gonna keep more money invested at any one time, which is great. Okay, super. So I think we've come up to time. I've covered off the questions there, I think. So thanks everyone for joining. A couple of last questions there in the group. Hi VJ. Yep. I will send over the information if you can, VJ, so I don't forget. Drop me an email. You've got my email on the screen. I will make a note of yours as well. Thanks for joining, VJ. Hi, Stevie. On the Royal Obidos, the only place you can stay for the 6 weeks is the Royal Obidos. Okay, yeah. So it is, yes. It's an incentive for the Royal Obidos. It's 6 weeks that you have there. You don't have to use the 6 weeks, of course. It's particularly popular for golfers or for people that just like to use the spa. It is a 5-star resort. But yeah, take a look at it. It is only that resort. Of course, if you do get a bit fed up of staying in the same place, you can stay anywhere that you like. Of course, it would be at your own expense naturally, but you've got 6 weeks complimentary stay there as well, which would be good to have lots of. I mean, there are other investment routes, just for the record, that do offer similar incentives that have options to stay in many different hotels. This is only one route as an example. So, if you want something, Stevie, that does have multiple complimentary stays, then yeah, let's go through it and I'll show you the different options that you have. Hi, Andrew. Is it possible to apply for a job in another country, i.e. Germany, while holding the Portugal Golden Visa? You can apply for a job in another country, that's fine, but you'll only be able to be in that country for 3 months at a time until you get the passport. Okay, so yeah, maybe a part-time job, but ultimately it will be a plan to get to Germany full-time after you've got the passport. So hopefully that helps. I mean, you can be in Portugal for the majority, spend a few months in Germany, come back to Portugal for a few months, head over to Spain for a few months, come back to Portugal, go over to Italy. You can be clever with it, but formally, you'll still have 3 months at a time in other EU countries. Okay. You're very welcome, Jennifer. Thank you for joining. Thanks, Eugene. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, right. I think it might be dinner time. For me, I think, yeah, I don't think there's any other questions there. Yep, hi there, Sine. Yep, the recording, no problem. Perfect, great. Well, thank you everyone for joining. I hope that was helpful. Like I said, loads to cover. I've been talking now for some time. I hope that was helpful. Oh, hi, Shannon. We got in late, sorry, but can you explain can the 401k be used for Royal Obidos? Unfortunately, the 401k cannot be used for Royal Obidos. But let's jump on a call, Shannon. I know we're in conversation anyway. Apologies, I've not come back to you over the past day or two. I've been blown out, but if you want to just let me know when you're free, maybe for one day next week, I'll go through it with you in a bit more detail. It might be possible for Royal Obidos, but it's quite difficult. But yeah, we'll go through it together. Thank you everyone for joining. I hope that was helpful. There'll be another webinar in March. I'll be sure to keep everyone up to date with my kind of monthly mail shots and latest news. Any questions, get in touch, and I shall speak to you all soon. I'll see you in Portugal.